Okay, why don't we go ahead and get started. Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's event. I'm Laura Dillon for MS Dynamics World, and we're here today for a session all about how to survive the retirement of FRx Forecaster and Management Reporter. Our presenters today are Noah Mosley and Derek Krebs, both with MSX Group, and it's great to have them back here with us again today. So as we get started, please know we do welcome your questions. You can enter them in at any time during the presentation in the Q&A box that you'll see on the right side of your event window. And I know that our presenters will be leaving time at the end of their presentation to get to as many of them as they can. So without any further delay, I'm going to hand things off to Noah to get us started.
Hey, Laura, thank you so much. Appreciate that introduction. Yep, we have this webcast focusing on Prospero for financial reporting and budgeting, and we're going to be talking about using this product to replace Management Reporter, FRx, and Forecaster all with a single application. Before I jump over to the product, a little bit about who we are. My name is Noah Mosley. I'm dialing in from Pensacola, Florida. I'm going to be handling the first half of this webcast, which will focus on the financial reporting piece of Prospero. And then Derek Krebs is going to follow up with the second half of this webcast, looking at the budgeting and forecasting piece of Prospero. Derek, myself, and the rest of our team, we have plenty of years of working with financial reporting and budgeting solutions. Us two and the rest of our team came from the FRx software company and the Microsoft before we founded our company, the MSX Group, and continued our focus on these financial reporting and budgeting software. So we got plenty of years, 20 years at least between each of us. So let me give you next a big picture about what we're going to be covering for Prospero and what this product does for you. This handles financial reporting and budgeting for your organization. This will handle all of your financial statements, your income statements, balance sheet statements, cash flow statements, and any other kind of supporting schedule that you want to pull together from your general ledger data. We're not limited to just GL data. We can import or pull in other information from other systems, but we do focus on the financial reporting piece. And in the same product, the same application, Prospero, we can also handle all of your budgeting and forecasting needs. And when we look at the budgeting and forecasting with Derek, he'll cover the basic input screens for us there, as well as detailed input screens for like HR budgeting, capital, line item details, and annotations. And the great thing about the budgeting and forecasting is everything is real-time collaboration between all your budget managers, and you can get out of the problem with all the things that that you have with you when you've outgrown Excel budgeting. So a little bit about what has brought us to this point in our company, where we have Prospero as a replacement for Management Reporter, Forecaster, and FRx. Microsoft has discontinued development on these products, Management Reporter, Forecaster, and FRx. Along with that, they've also going to be phasing out their support for these products. And although we still handle consulting services and support for these products, we realize that those are going to be going away. So we built or started building quite a while back Prospero as a replacement for these products. If you're a client right now using these products, you're going to eventually have to find some solution to replace them, because everybody needs their financial reporting software and their budgeting solutions. And that's why we have put this together in a single application for you. All of us, we are from the same teams, FRx and Microsoft, that built and handle the support and development and consulting services for FRx and Forecaster and Management Reporter. So plenty of experience to help us build this new solution that we're providing to the community. A few key points about Prospero before we actually get into the product itself. Reports and the budget input screens, they're all built using building blocks, very similar to how FRx and Management Reporter and Forecaster use building blocks to build their input screens and their reports. The row formats, the row definitions, column definitions, and reporting tree definitions, all that we call ours, lines, columns, and trees. All definitions for all of your reports and all your budget setup is stored in a single SQL database. So it really consolidated location for all this data. Big step forward over FRx, because if you're still using FRx, everything's stored in files on the network and shared sysdata folder, and access databases. So a huge step forward going from Access to SQL. And a great improvement going from Management Reporter and Forecaster, because those two applications kept the financial data in a separate SQL database from their budget data. Ours is all in one SQL database. Security is all based off of Windows or standard authentication, so that you can have the network authentication, so your users don't have to worry about an additional user ID and password, or we have that SQL authentication available. We have built-in graphic analysis, but it's not just a static graph that comes up that you can build and it's hard to change. The graphs we have in Prospero, you can drill down through to the additional detail levels. So a great feature there that none of the other products in the past had that option. We've got integration to your general ledger, and we have the option to migrate reports from FRx and copying your budget setup from Forecaster. So you don't have to start from scratch. So I'm going to take us now over to Prospero, give us a tour inside the product of this financial reporting and budgeting solution. And let's jump over there. All right. So I've got Prospero on my screen. A little bit about the navigation. We've got two ways to navigate inside Prospero. The main navigation is on the left-hand side here. You've got buttons on the left for reports, and they're all displayed at the top here for whatever financial statements that you want to build inside Prospero. And then we also have buttons for our building blocks. We've got buttons for our lines, which will be used to build all of our input screens and our reports inside this application. Same thing for our column definitions. And we have trees as well. Now, the trees inside Prospero are a little bit different than how we had reporting trees inside FRx and Management Reporter. The trees in Prospero are more similar to the trees in Forecaster. You'll see here I've got all of our different dimensions and the companies listed at the top half of the screen here. Companies are natural dimension, location, and department. We have roll-ups or summaries of each of these. So if I expand these, I can see I've got an all department summary. I've got under the natural different options for organizing all of our accounts and for locations as well. And we can use any of these roll-up definitions in any of our reports or input screens for the rows or the columns. And when you run a report or open up an input screen, you can reference these as well. There are a couple of other buttons on the left-hand side. We've got options for published reports. I'll look at that towards the end of my half of the page here, but that's where if you do want to save a copy of a report, you can publish it. And you're publishing it into the SQL database. It takes a static copy and saves that for us. We handle all security here inside Prospero at one location. That includes all the security for the financial statements as well as all of your budgeting input screens and reports. Now, that's the main navigation on the left-hand side. I do have on my right-hand side our quick launch navigation window, which has large friendly buttons for all the reports and charts that I use most often. If I scroll down the page here, I've got options for the budget input screens if I want to access that part of Prospero, and quick links towards the bottom here for easily letting me create new reports, jump over to our message boards, change any options, and any other quick links that you want to add to this quick launch window. And all this is tailored for individual users, so if I change mine, it doesn't affect any of my other Prospero users. Let me scroll back to the top here for us. Okay, and some people just like to go with the quick launch. If that's the case and you don't care about that main navigation on the left-hand side, I can always hide that, give us more room on the right here for us. If you want to bring that panel back out, you've got an arrow just to expand that panel back from the left-hand side there. So I'm going to start us off by looking at one of our financial statements. This is favorable versus unfavorable budgeted income statements. So I'm going to click it once to get that started. Before it actually starts processing the reports, Prospero has a window that comes up, asks me if I want to change anything. It's like, do I want to change the date I'm going to run this report for? Don't want to do anything about the rounding for the whole report. And at the top left, what individual companies or summary of dimensions do I want to run this report for? Right now I'm running this for our U.S. company. I'm running it for all locations and all departments, but I can easily change that. So for location, I am going to change that so I'll have a look at not just one list of locations. I'm going to look at it by region. So if I expand that, you can see that I can run this report. I'll have easy access to the numbers from the East region, South, West, and Midwest, and all rolled together. So easy to pick from those tree roll-ups what I want to run this report for. Click OK there. And I also want to change my output destination, which is a great feature that we brought back in Prospero with Manage Reporter. You could not select any output other than going to either the web viewer or the report viewer. But us, we've changed that back to how FRx will let you generate reports directly to Excel, directly to PDF, or straight to the printer. So you don't have to do that second step of running the report, looking at it in the viewer, and then exporting it. You can do it right here before you even generate the report. For us, though, I'm going to send this report over to the workspace. It opens up right here in Prospero on the screen for us. When I click OK, this will start running the report. Prospero pulls all that data together for us, and when it opens up the report, it's only going to open up in a different tab in this application. So it doesn't have to go out there to a web viewer or a report viewer as a separate application. We're still here in the same application. You can see I've got two tabs here at the top. This one I just created with the report, and I can easily go back to the quick launch tab that's still open. So easy navigation. Now this is a very straightforward income statement for us. All of our sales, returns, and discounts all the way down through expenses to net income. All those rows are detailed in our line set for this report definition. It can be as detailed or as summarized as we need to. I'll show you that line set definition in just a little bit. The column definition has every column of this report. I've got descriptions on the left. I've got a column for actuals, prior year actuals, the budget, and dollar variance and percent variance. Now, when you're building your reports, you can have as many columns as you need. If you needed 12 columns of actuals right beside 12 columns of budget and a variance column for every one of those, that's fine. You can add as many columns to these report definitions as you need. And formatting as well. You control all the fonts, the colors, the sizes, background colors, everything when you design the formatting for these reports. Drill down. When I ran this report, I ran it for a summary level. I ran it for the U.S. company, but for all departments and for a roll-up of locations. We have drill down here, so you can drill down through all of those details. If I go to sales, returns, and discounts and double-click, I'm going to open up a new tab that shows me the dollars for sales, $1.1 million, intercompany sales, $784, and sales returns and sales discounts. So those are the account numbers that made up that original total. A great feature that we added here in Prospero is to be able to change that drill down order. So suppose I didn't want to see this by account numbers. Let me go back one tab. And I want to use this icon at the top here to change the drill down order. I'll click this. This will show me that when I double click to drill down on a row, it's going to first go through my natural account numbers, then my departments, company, and location. I'm just going to move location to the top of this list. So when I drill down, I'll get my list of locations first, and then I can go to my naturals. Easy change there. Now I'll double click sales, returns, and discounts. Instead of my account numbers, I can see my regions. I've got $69,000 under the South region, $251,000 in the West, and $803,000 in the Midwest. So an easy way to change the drill down order for any of your companies or dimensions. And that was a feature that you could do using FRx, but we lost that with Management Reporter. But we thought it was a great idea, so we brought that back here in Prospero. Another option that we have inside Prospero is the charting and graphing. It's easy to look at all these numbers here in the number format. and just as easy to change the same page over to a chart or graph. So any tab that I have open, I can use this icon at the top that says Display as Chart. I'll click that one time, and Prospero takes all these numbers and changes that over to charts and graphs for us. And I can use my cursor, just hover over any of these sections, and I can see that in the West, that was about $251,000, about 22% of this total. I had Midwest, $803,000, about 71% of the total, and I had $69,000 in the South for about 6%. Now, these charts and graphs here, they're not static. You can still double-click and drill down to the details. So if I wanted to see what makes up the total for this West slice of the pie, I just double-click. This goes down another level, and I can see that in the West, I've got 20% of the sales coming from San Francisco services. And I've got the rest of that coming from San Francisco sales. So not only does it show us the data in the numeric format, it is easy to take it and switch it over to this graphical display, which also still includes drill down to the lower levels. And every time I double-clicked to drill down, it opens up a new tab on the top. So it's easy to switch back to any of these previous tabs. All those reports are still waiting there for us. I'm going to close out a few of these for us. Hey, Derek, welcome to the webcast.
I might chime in occasionally because a question that just came in is, hey, can I export any of those subtotaled or drill down out to Excel? And yes, by all means. Noah could have easily clicked on the export to Excel. And the nice thing is, instead of having 4 or 5 different reports, any one of these subtotals or change drill on the fly can be taken out to Excel, printer, or PDF. So you don't have to rerun or go to a 3rd, 4th, or 5th report like maybe you're currently experiencing. So thanks for that question. And Noah, go ahead.
All right. Thanks, Derek. All right, so I want to look at how this report was built with the line set specifically. So I've got a very good income statement here for us with the sales, returns, and discounts, cost of goods sold, and all my expenses. Now, when I look at the line set definition, you won't see nearly all of this listed in the line set definition. So we have a feature inside Prospero where you can reference this one total row for expenses and tell it to automatically expand and show us above it all the rows that are included in that total. And if you ever added a new expense account in your general ledger, you run this report again, you don't have to go back and change the line set definition. It automatically would see those new expense balances and would include that when it shows this report. Okay, so I'm going to take us to the line set definition and show you how that looks in that definition. And another great feature that we have in Prospero that you don't have inside FRx or Managed Reporter is the option to open up the line set that this report uses. If you were in FRx or Managed Reporter and Drill Down Viewer, you couldn't easily go back to that. You'd have to go back to the other application, Report Designer, find the report definition, and then go to the line set definition inside that application. Here, I've got some shortcut icons at the top. This icon would open up the column set this report uses. This icon would open up the line set this report uses, and this icon would open up the report definition itself. So since we're in one application, it's easy to jump to all those different areas just by using these quick access buttons. And I'm going to use this one to open up the line set this report was built with. Now this one only has a few rows here because we've told it to reference total expenses as a roll-up. And if I look at that roll-up, there's a lookup button here. It'll show me the tree for my natural accounts, and it's under my net income, total expenses, and it's a range of account numbers from account 6,000 through 7,999. So if I ever in my general ledger added a new expense account in that range, I don't have to come back to this report and make any changes. It would automatically pick it up. It would automatically expand, show that new row, and show that new balance. So a great way to reduce maintenance that we don't have that option inside FRx and Managed Reporter. So that would have the total there for us, and what tells it to expand is our expansion column right here. We've got the option that says just expand, and above this row show us all of the details. Did a similar thing for the net revenue subtotal row, so that expands and shows us the revenue accounts above that row. So it really helps to reduce maintenance, catches those new accounts, and it makes this definition itself here a lot smaller to deal with. And before I leave the line set definition, I also want to point out previews. Back inside FRx or Managed Reporter, you had no preview options. If you run a report, you'd have to look at the report after it generates to see exactly how it looks. But with us here in Prospero, we do have a preview option. I'll check this box at the top. And that way at the bottom of the screen, I'll at least have an idea about how this line set is going to look when the report generates. It'll show me my formatting, my underlining, my double underscores, all those things so that I can have a picture without actually having to run the report and see it. And you have preview options for all your line sets and for your column set definitions as well. All right, let me take us back to the report that I generated earlier here. A little thing about how this report is stored in SQL. At this point, it's just open in my on my desktop here. It's not stored in SQL with these numbers. So if I wanted to see it again, I'd have to regenerate this report. But we do have the option where we can publish this, which is kind of like saving this copy. And I've got a button at the top that will let me click Publish. And then that will open up my list of published report folders. I ran this for April of 2017, so I'll put it in that folder there. And that is saving this generated copy. So you'll know what numbers you published on that date. And another great feature that we have for this published folder here is that on the right-hand side, for any published reports, you have annotations available. There's a little panel on the right that'll slide out. This will let me or anybody else who has access to this report add notes. So really handy if you've got an actual to budget report and you need to explain any of these variances. Just make sure that you've got a row highlighted. You can go to annotations, add that note to this report, and then it'll show it to whoever else opens this report later. It also puts in who added that note and the date and time. So great feature to add to collaboration for all of your reports inside Prospero. And this piece about publishing the reports, great feature there. It only saves the ones that I publish. So if you think back to Management Reporter, every time you run a report, Management Reporter saves a copy of that in the SQL database. So it easily and quickly clutters up the SQL database for Management Reporter. With us, we don't store it unless you actually decide you want to publish it. All right, let me back up a window here for us. So that was a quick tour of that income statement for us. We looked at formatting. We looked at the change in the drill down order. We looked at charting and graphing inside Prospero, drilling down to those lower level of details, publishing reports, annotations, and we looked at the line set. That was a great feature for letting us automatically expand rows so that we don't have to go back and always edit our line definitions. A lot of stuff there. We have a ton more of bells and whistles for financial reporting, but we do have a lot more to show you for budgeting and forecasting. So Derek, I'm going to let you join me back here for that piece of the webcast.
All right, and Noah, I'll just double check with your audio. Can you see my screen?
Audio sounds good, and the screen looks good, Derek.
All right, thanks for that initial overview, especially on the reporting focus. And a little quick intro like Noah began. My name's Derek Krebs. I've been a consultant for, way too long, especially in software accounting years, going on the last 20 years. And like Noah described, we all started back in the old FRx Microsoft days. And 8 years ago, we were tasked to come up with basically a reporting product. And with Microsoft's recent announcements, we now have several general ledger interfaces. And one thing to also emphasize as I'm going to transition and focus primarily on the budgeting piece is, yes, one single application. Let me even just start recapping a few highlights that Noah led in with, and maybe in my session as well. I'll just quickly rattle off like the very first row. Yeah, Prospero was released about 6+ years ago, and several interfaces with no really development in the Microsoft stack. Security setup, which I'll touch upon a little further. I call it decentralized in what your current challenging world is today. An example in Manager Porter is you have 4 rigid roles that you have to sort of work within, but basically Prospero, you have infinite roles or groups you can create. Or second example, inside Microsoft Forecaster, even though you could have budgeted and used 10 dimensions or segments, you only could have secured one of those. But thankfully, we've learned those lessons and the deficiencies of the Microsoft stack, and now security can be at multiple segments, like my company and location and department. So I can easily segregate and get a very macro or micro on my security. The application little line there, really are doing double the work. Even I can attest with all the clients we still support, hundreds today on FRx Forecaster Manager Porter. Many have transitioned to Prospero, but we're here to help in your current stack until you make the switch here. But now, instead of doing double the work, it's one single application and module, so you don't have to worry about multiple modules or areas here. The line set maintenance, especially there to the right, you had a lot of maintenance involved, or hopefully remember, in human error prone in both Manager Porter and Forecaster. If you add a new revenue expense account, you'd have to hopefully remember all the line set or row formats to update. Many times you forgot those, but now using that expand feature with ranges and wildcards, that almost reduces or avoids maintenance altogether. So nice feedback from a lot of our customers that have transitioned. The report output, yeah, we brought back all those ones like direct to the viewer, Excel, PDF, and printer. Last slide, then I'll jump into the product. Like graphing we saw, basically no or very rudimentary capability in FRx and Manager Porter, but now 3-dimensional graphs, even our subtotal nature, sending out to Excel. The drill down order, I personally love that, where I can take one report and analyze it in about 4 or 5 different ways. Otherwise, I'd have to, again, create 4 or 5 separate reports. The report library, I can't tell you how many support issue and case calls I've been on the Manager Porter database growing large. Maybe a user seeing data they shouldn't, but only they see published reports only. So I'll show you briefly an end-user perspective, very limited, as we're seeing a lot of the row comma tree links as an end user, or excuse me, power user. Statistic little bullet point, since it is a data warehouse that comes with Prospero, yeah, not only can you pump in budget data, yeah, you can also load statistics, and even we've written some little integration scripts to maybe bring this custom user-defined field inside your general ledger, or maybe have a third-party database data I want to include and add to that. So those are definitely options in the data warehouse included. And that also goes on the budgeting side. You had to do a lot of very tedious exporting and importing between, let's say, your general ledger database and Microsoft Forecaster. And then whenever you're done with your budget, after you imported maybe actuals into the Forecaster database for comparison, when you're all done with your budget, you had to export, massage, bring it back in your general ledger. So all of those manual steps are no longer needed. It's all automated in a single database now, Prospero. And let me go ahead and jump now into the application, focusing on the budget input side. And I'll even paint 1 or 2 extra little challenges. If you're still coming from the Excel world, how about let's envision you have 10 locations and 5 departments. So if I multiply those
Derek?
together, yes.
Hi, sorry, this is Laura. I'm sorry to interrupt. I've gotten a couple of comments from people that your voice is a little quiet. Do you think you could move closer to your mic or turn up your volume a little bit?
Yes, I'll do so. Noah, are you getting that same feedback too, or?
It sounds fine on my side.
Yeah, because I've tested all the things on my end as well before this call, but thanks for that feedback here as I even jacked the volume all the way up to the top, and I have the mic basically right to next to my lips. But
excellent.
Thank you both for your input.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Going to the fact that maybe you might be coming from the Excel hell world, we call it. Maybe those 50 different location departments, meaning different sheets and files, difficult to maintain. However, in Prospero, you can reuse these building blocks. So in my example, I'll have maybe 2 input templates, one for maybe a pure expense department, maybe a second that is for maybe a revenue and expense department. So I'll have maybe 2 templates, but just 2 templates are line definitions I can use across maybe 50 plus different location department responsibilities. Since it's all cohesive using trees to automatically roll it all up, all in one database, I don't have to manually import, export back and forth. Saves you a lot of the difficult manual error-prone steps there in one version of the truth on data integrity. And then there's Prospero Benefits, but I'll probably just gloss on that, leave that up just for a second. Inside Prospero, here is our input link. You could have different budget versions, like maybe a budget of the 12 months, or maybe a forecast, maybe mid-year. I have 6 months actual, 6 months budget, maybe looking at multi-year plans as well. But I'm going to just pull up this standard budget. I'm logged in as an administrator. So I'm going to show you what I call behind the scenes, so we're not always transparent, showing you how user-friendly it is. It's all within one cohesive spot. I don't have to jump to other modules, or in Forecaster, I don't have to jump to other 5 or 6 different areas. It's all at my fingertips, like I'll focus on some human resources modeling. Very easily define, let's say, my expense accounts and benefits. Or in the capital side of the house, as I bullet point some highlights from today's call, if I want to budget some new computer equipment, new vehicles, furniture, equipment, I can easily define those assumptions here all at my fingertips in one central area. When I spoke of the line set, we can use the same line set and expanding rows for both our report and budget input. Like this is what I'll call my default line set that every of my 50 plus location departments utilize. But then here on the Overrides tab, when I mentioned I'll have 2 line sets like pure expenses or maybe that have revenue, COGS, and expenses, I can then at either a single department, like here in this department pick list, we have a selection of whether or not to use a tree or not. So this is what I call our list view of location departments. And since I'm an administrator, I get to see everything. However, if time permits, if I log in as one of my end users that only has a certain single or couple departments, that's all they'll see here, especially when they open up reports or when they open up budget input screens. Now I'm focusing just on a single sales department. I just clicked on this Use Selection Tree button because, yes, my sales department has a different template using revenue and cost of goods sold. Now, of our other segments like company and location, I can efficiently say, oh, at the summary level, meaning I want all regions for this Department 200 to use maybe a different line set called Sales Override. And I could have added more individualized templates, but you usually only have a couple or a handful here. I could have just clicked on the Add line here and maybe have a 3rd or 4th line set, if applicable, based on the uniqueness or custom tailored line sets you have across your organization, but all here. And really, I love the rows, columns, and trees you interchange. Can't emphasize that so much on the user-friendliness and nature of that. I'll now go ahead and open up the input, and I'll look at 2 different departments, starting with this Department 100 down here at the very bottom for my administration department or other that I might have security access to. I'll just go ahead and open that up. It has a very familiar grid-based screen, as we generically call this, meaning simply lines and columns. Many times the same ones I'm using for reports. Possibilities are endless. Like the accounts, we're focusing on maybe primarily revenue expenses, but definitely I see common trends of balance sheet and cash flow that definitely we can do, including some statistics like headcount, units sold, margins, yes to all of that inside this little flexible data warehouse. Those items may exist already in your general ledger, but they don't have to. I can easily create accounts or departments or new locations not in a general ledger, which is very nice, so I don't have to go through all of those extra steps in years past. Color coding and formatting, sometimes we keep ours a little basic, but colors of the rainbow based on whatever formatting and emphasis that you want here. Now, one color I personally prefer is shading. I like shaded cells like gray, where you, maybe the end user, you stay away from. The rows in white, yes, you key in data directly to, but shaded, not direct input. Like here is our salaries, one of the biggest costs of an organization. I can come over here to the HR tab. Perfect, purpose-built, very user-friendly HR model where I can do it by name or position, like Terry, Bob, Sally, or I could do it position 1, 2, 3, like registered nurse, LPN, or truck driver, or clerk, whatever needed. We have here to the right, like full-time equivalency / head counts, what period they start and end, pay raises, bonus, overtime. And then looking here to the right, we can have some custom benefit fields. Right now, I'll share with you, in our demonstration database, I reside in California. However, we have our original FRx and many of our development support team in Colorado, including New Jersey, Georgia, Florida. We have offices throughout. I might be a California employee, and I'll show you one simple table where you, the administrator, you define these choices, and you define the rate or amount. The rate could be a percent of salary with or without a limit, or amount could be, let's say, health insurance, maybe a flat fee of $800 per head count or full-time equivalent, or you could have varying amounts like health single at one rate or health family at a different. I just showed you one field of state, but you can have as many user-defined fields here to the right that really you need. Probably about 5 to 10 are about average that people have, like workers' comp, choice A, B, C, 401k, 1%, 2 or 3% contributor, cell phone, yes or no type. I'll get back to some of those setup details here in just a moment. But as I return back to the main screen, after you maybe import your budgeted staff, does not matter what payroll system you're using, you simply need a file that you initially import for your starting budget, a column for what their department in, how much they make, simply upload it into the system, and then the system will also keep track of some optional, and yes, I prefer head count, hours, full-time equivalency, because actually we have 7 bodies or head count, but only 5.5 full-time equivalent because maybe a couple of these people only work part-time. And then again, benefits could either be based on head count or full-time equivalency or percent of salary based, to repeat those key concepts. Even though some of our tax amounts might not fully represent it, because we have, notice here at the very end of the year, we have our taxes being dropped off because we have one simple table, which now I'll transition to. Only me as the administrator, which I began with. I'll turn back to this Human Resources tab. Now this top half of the window versus bottom half is basically where we define what account we want for our salaries. It might be a single account like 6,000, but maybe we have different positions going to different expense accounts. So that's the primary purpose that this pay grade area does, telling again what expense account, or maybe what optional or different head count or hours account that I want to capture it in, or maybe some other default assumptions like are they salary or hourly, or do I want to have a default pay raise for this group, yay or nay. And all of this information I'm showing you can be defined and overwritten at the individual level as well. So you have the best of both worlds, as I call it. Down below, and even I'll add a new benefit, like here is health insurance. With this fixed rate turned on, that might mean health. I want to globally budget everybody at $800 a month into account 6250. Now this account 6250, I could either use a tree to maybe zoom in some of those ranges, as Noah maybe showed you total expense or total revenue expanding, but I'm showing you now the list view, so we can zoom in to see your GL accounts very readily and easily in this list here. And instead of one flat rate for health, I'll just show you briefly. I'm going to add a new user field number 2 for health choices, and I'll do single or family, just to let you know how simple and easy it is. And I'll just call this simply health single and health family. And then here to the right, I might use that same account number 6250, either based on to the left full-time equivalency or head count. And then I'll put in some fixed rate randomly of $500 versus $800. Now over here to the right, in my user-defined field 2, up to many more here to the right, and at the top of the screen, where it says 5 user-defined fields, I'm just going to click on the 6. I just added a new column or field, like this field number 2. I'm going to call it health, and then I'll just define my 2 choices, like insert family or single. And then I'm all done. And then that way, Derek, I have a family. And when I get imported in the system, I might have, along with my department that I'm in, along with my salary dollar, I might have a little family identifier. Therefore, the system knows to do X rate versus Y rate. Once I click OK, there's now the health column. I'm now on the single line at $500 a month. I'll say, yep, single, either single selection I choose in this list, or it could have been multiple. And that's a big advantage coming from Forecaster, where you had to have a very, very large grid that we now have streamlined in. But there's just an example of how uniformly and easily you can define centrally all of your benefits across the organization and even get granular as needed. I'll return now back to the data input screen as we saw some related statistics, headcount, dollars, taxes, stopping. Let me look at now another detail tab, capital. Here's this example. We might be in the IT department. I need some new copiers or a new tablet computer. I could come up here and click on the insert button simply to add a new line, but for time's sake I won't go through those keystrokes here. And basically I say what month that I'm going to budget it for, how many of those items do I need. Like in this case, it takes your account times price, like 10,000 I'm budgeting of 5 computers at 2,000 each in maybe the month of January. And then over here to the right, these are purely for references only. I don't have to show that here at the very top, those reference accounts, but maybe you, the finance team, this defines the balance sheet account to hit, and maybe the depreciation account. And then as I return back to the main tab, we can now have here, there's the 10,000 of computers I just spoke of, and then we could have our related depreciation expense down below being updated or impacted based on that new capital addition. All right, so those are some of the grade shaded cells where you not do direct input. You might take advantage of our supporting schedules for HR or capital. I'm going to now transition to what we call line item detail. How about a big ticket item like I might be in the marketing area for advertising? I want to break out maybe the amounts I want to budget for magazine, radio, or etc. So I can come up here on the toolbar and I can insert a line item. And then here, instead of our radio or online, let's now do a newspaper ad. And then whatever varying months I want to key in some data, I'll just enter a random amount. Now I just updated this to 5,600. That way anybody else reviewing my budget, all right, Derek, why did he budget advertising? Here's a nice icon indicator, advertising, and I can see the detail and what I call on the fly, which is awesome to add. But maybe at times I want to have a fixed structure on how a user might budget an amount. I'll be transitioning to, let's say, revenue. I want my sales manager to budget the number of units they're going to project to sell and maybe the average price and maybe a second template or a third line set based on my need for customization here. I could have also added annotations on the toolbar. I'm going to click on this little button here to show the annotations column, and then scrolling here to the right, since I made my screen resolution higher, here might be the note, what user, as I'm logged in as a generic system admin user, but it might say Derek or Bob here on this date, and these are basically, again, memos or comments. Noah did a brief example earlier, but we have those same annotations inside our budgeting area to help share and convey information. So you don't have manual offline, all collaborated, all centrally in a single application. We also have audit trail history behind an account. Like if I came up here and entered $100, saved it using Control-S type keyboard, or I could have copied that across to several different months as well. I'll save that to $200. Let me now show you on the toolbar, I could look at history amongst a single account or across multiple accounts and even multiple departments. But at least this first illustration I'll do of history, we'll say, all right, here is maybe Derek, the admin user, on this date and time, change it from this dollar to this dollar in the month of January that I picked on. All right, so nice audit trail history. If you have multiple cooks in a kitchen making budget inputs, you can see who did the change and when. On the capital tab, let me paraphrase one or two setup elements to make sure I go full circle with that thought. and then I'll go over to security, and then I'll pass the back to Noah in case there's anything I forgot. We also want to convey. I'm back in the original, what I call budget template setup, where again a review is here's my single master line set that the majority of my location departments use. Otherwise, the overrides is where I can have additional customized ones, even add more lines to this grid. HR, yep, our expense accounts for salary or benefits below. And just to recap, capital, here is where we choose maybe the balance sheet account, the expense depreciation, maybe a default price that can be overwritten when people add an item, or I could leave that 0, and maybe the life and months that our depreciation calculates off of. But all at my fingertips. You don't have to bounce around to separate modules or have to have 4, 5, 6 steps involved. It's very easily defined there. Speaking from a person that deploys a lot of other different budgeting tools. Okay. On the security note, very important that users and managers can only see what you've gave them access to. I'm logging as an administrator user, so I'm going to come here under security to our user definition. This pane here to the left are our different roles or groups, and you can create and name them anything you wish. Like, yeah, I'm logged in as an administrator user, and we could either use Windows authentication or SQL authentication. Like here is maybe a Windows user. We're on the MSX domain and one of our users. Or otherwise, we generically use some SQL users to log in and out of various aspects of the product. Like this Business Analyst West user, looking here to the right, I have several little check marks of how I can get very granular. Instead of Manager Porter having 4 rigid roles, you can basically have infinite regarding what they can or cannot do, like any administrative functions, any of the setup of reports and trees, or can they run reports or just view only, or can they input budget data, just to name a few highlights here. Another highlight is for this same user I'll call Bob that I'm on. On the toolbar, I have assignments for Bob. Now basically this looks at your segmentation, like you might be multiple company. I've wildcarded the company, which means, yeah, Bob gets access to all, but I could say, nope, Bob only gets company 1, 2, or 3. I could get very granular. Or same thing for any additional segment. Instead of Forecaster only being able to secure one segment at a time, you can secure across all of these. And instead of a single center, I could have wildcarded it, meaning all, but let's go back to the locational example. Instead of the list view, I'm going to use the selection tree, like the regional tree Noah pulled up a couple of times. Maybe I'm in charge of the Midwest, which means all of the items that begin with a 4. Or another way to phrase that is, this requires 0 or no maintenance to your tree. In FRx Manager and Forecaster, you would normally have to go in and update that tree whenever you added a new 4 location, but 0 done here. So yep, let's say Bob gets all the Midwest. Now if I change Bob's responsibility, all right, Bob got a raise. Instead of Midwest, he's now all of the regions. And this is where Bob could also advantageously look at reports and budget templates using tree views. I do not have to rerun all the reports, but in Manager Porter or FRx era, yeah, you have to rerun all your reports whenever you change security in a decentralized by individual tree or folder level, but this is now central, and you do not have to rerun all reports. This is now real time, what you now changed Bob's assignments for. And how about final little bullet points on security? That was mainly the role privileges, these check marks, or Bob's assignment of company location department, or what I call your general ledger segmentation. Now finally, we also have security access to budget templates and reports. Now let me role play this budget all my users are working with. But how about this budget copy? That's what I'm going to call my best case budget that's internal just to the finance team only, not my end users. So when I open up this master budget template, and this same concept would also apply to reports. So when I show you that, it will be that much more familiar and uniform. But on this one master budget, on what's called visibility, I could easily say, all right, yeah, I want all users to be able to input this so long as they fall within the role because two roles might be yes, budget input. A second role might be no budget input. But maybe I can say all users, and based on a role is if they could do budget input or not, or I could turn this off, and when I click on the insert button down below, I could insert multiple lines here. And efficiently I could define, notice this column, I could define the role type, like how about all of my accountants, this role, yeah, maybe they can see this or something, or I can also do it by individual user, but all or by role or by user of who can make edits or see this or not. And even we can lock, even though they might see it, you might lock it down because maybe you want to review it and where it's not a moving target. So you can say yay or nay to budget version A, B, C, or year 1, 2, 3 being locked or not. So a lot of controls at your fingertips. And finally, let's look back to report area. I'll just pull up one of these random reports here. And we have the same thing for the visibility. However, let me role play that this is a balance sheet report. So maybe I don't want all users access to this. Maybe only the power user group or role. But the same visibility for the report. You just define it once at the report level and just publish it out whenever you're done at the month end. All right, Noah, let me pass it back to you. Let's see if any questions came in. We'll try to field a couple questions. However, definitely we're going to have some action item takeaways that Noah will convey here in just a minute once he broadcasts his screen. I'll summarize that we would be glad to do a one-on-one little webinar. Otherwise, we hold some every week or two, and even using a trial version of Prospero using demo data like we've demonstrated, or most of our existing Prospero customers went through even a free trial version of Prospero using a sampling of their data to validate the power, ease, and use of it. So, Noah, we do see your screen. Thank you, and I'll pass the mic back to you.
Hey, thanks, Derek. Yep, so we just have a few slides for wrapping up and a few questions to cover. A great thing about budgeting inside Prospero is that as soon as your budget managers click the Save button, everything gets stored in the same SQL database that all your financial reports and data is stored in. So any reports you have that you're comparing budget to actuals, you have updated right away, consolidated right away. You don't have to worry about collecting Excel files and emails and putting all those Excel files in a consolidated Excel file. Everything's done as soon as they click the Save button. I do have a few questions I want to bring up. There's a question about importing reports from Management Reporter. So currently, we do have an option where we can copy reports from FRx over to Prospero, and we can copy Forecaster setup over to Prospero. We do not currently have that option to import from Management Reporter, but we are exploring options for that. So by the time we talk about this next, we may very well have that already set up for you. So don't rule that out, that we can't migrate those Management Reporter reports for you. Check with us in about a month or so. Excel data, yes, you can get Excel data into any of our reports inside Prospero or into the budget screens. We actually don't link to the Excel cells or spreadsheets. We just import that Excel data into the Prospero SQL database, and then you can use it for reporting or budgeting or both. So yes, any data that you've got in Excel spreadsheets, we can use in Prospero for reports or budgeting. There's a question about the publishing of reports. Was it like the FRx report files? Kind of similar, huge differences though. Yes, so when you ran an FRx report, it would create a file that was stored in a shared location on the network. So that's a static copy of that FRx report that you generated, and then you could share that with other people. Same kind of deal with publishing reports inside Prospero. It is a static copy. It's shareable with other people, but it's not a file out in the network. It's just that report, the data in the SQL database. So similar, but it's not an external file. A colleague user asked if Prospero integrates with colleagues' FRx process, and yes, so we can. If you're using a system where FRx was exporting data from an FDM database like that, yes, we can pull that and set it up for our Prospero reports. Then there was another question about comparing Prospero and Power BI. Should we go with Power BI instead of Prospero? What are the differences there? It is a lot easier to migrate your reports and your budget setup from these other applications over to Prospero than having to set up all that over again inside Power BI. As far as I know, there's no migration option for Power BI. Plus, Prospero is going to be a lot more feasible for you. You have a lot higher dollar amount for the Power BI implementations. And one more question to wrap this up is, when you do your budget inside Prospero, do you have to push that budget data back into GP? So we do not have to push that budget data from Prospero back into the GP budget tables, because we're using all in the same SQL database in Prospero that we use for financial reporting. I think there are some people that need budget data in GP's table to use for other purposes. We don't have that built-in feature that will automatically push it from Prospero back into GP, but we are exploring that option. Derek, you have any comments from those questions or anything else that come in since I started? If not, I'll roll through the last 3 slides here.
Yeah, go ahead and just put up the contact information, but I think there might be some nice little takeaways. I saw a few other questions come in, but we'll probably be better taking it offline and individually some of these. So go ahead and put up the
Yep, I'll run through these last 3
slide.
slides. Yep. So recapping what we've covered this hour, budgeting and financial reporting is in Prospero for a single product. You don't have all these different applications to keep track of. It's all handled in one place with Prospero. It's an easy interface. We use interchangeable building blocks that save you time and reduce maintenance. So you use lines, rows, and trees to make up your report definitions and input screen definitions, and they're shared between financial reporting and budgeting. You've got embedded graphics with drill down and changing the drill down order, so easy to analyze that data in different ways. We do have that FRx report conversion and importing the forecaster set up into Prospero, and we're looking at the management reporter conversion as well. You can have as many different versions of your budgets and forecasts inside Prospero as you need, and we also have that for your HR details, revenue details, and capital details. All the security is in one central location. Derek showed you that towards the end of his part there, and that security handles the budget security as well as the financial reporting security. And we built Prospero with a lot of bells and whistles that we liked from FRx and that we liked from Managed Reporter and that we liked from Forecaster. We are aggressively continuing to add more bells and whistles to Prospero every day. So this is a great product that we are actively developing. It's got great value for you and a great return on investment. For more information after today's webcast or watching this video, we've got all of our information online at www.msxgroup.com/Prospero. Great information there for you. If you want to try a trial site of Prospero, we can set that up for you for a limited time. And we can set that up with either demo data or even use your own data. So you can use your chart of accounts, your dimensions, your account numbers. We can bring in some of your balances so you can see your actuals inside this trial site, really to give you a really authentic feel for the product. If you got any questions, email or call us. We've got our email there, info@msxgroup.com, and our phone number, 877-456-7632. Glad you all could join us today. Derek and I appreciate the opportunity to present Prospero for you for financial reporting and budgeting, and we hope to be talking with you again very soon. Laura, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Noah and Derek, for that great presentation, and thanks everyone for all of your really good questions. This does conclude today's session. We did record it. We'll be sharing that with you soon. Also, be on the lookout for a brief survey that will pop up after you close out of the event window. The feedback really helps us here at MSCW and our presenters. So we'll end there. Have a great day, everyone.